get this loaded up quickly. Screen share. All right, and I think we are good to go. Perfect. So the topic of my presentation is looking into the very popular question, does dietary fat make you fat? And I actually became interested in this topic. I would always notice my dad eating these low-fat Twizzlers, and it was just his favorite snack. And I remember he was actually trying to lose weight, so he would always say that he eats these low-fat Twizzlers because they're low-fat, so it must be a health food and it must help him lose weight. So again, just some pre-existing beliefs is that, well, fat must make you fat. Why? Well, because it's called fat. So if you eat fat, it's going to make you fat. Reducing fat will make me skinny, just because if you reduce your fat intake, shouldn't that make you less fat? And what these pre-existing beliefs have done is they've kind of led to the creation of lots of low-fat diets and villainizing fat. And even the dietary guidelines for Americans recommend that we consume low-fat dairy products. So, why could this be? Well, first, fat contains 9 calories per gram, whereas proteins and carbohydrates contain 4 calories per gram. So, kind of what this means is fat is a lot more calorically dense than any other macronutrient. So, eating an excessive amount of fat could put you in a caloric surplus, which could put your body in an anabolic state and lead to body fat accumulation. However, that could happen if you overeat any nutrient. So, if you overeat protein, it could be stored as body fat. And as we know, it's extremely common if you overeat carbohydrates, especially refined carbohydrates, it could lead to an increase in body fat. So, fat does not strictly make you fat just because it has more calories per gram. So, what are some of the benefits of consuming dietary fat? Well, first off, fat is very important for human health. It's needed to help the body absorb the fat soluble vitamins like vitamins A, D, E, and K. Fat also provides insulation for the body and helps regulate body temperature. So, up here in Minnesota, where it dips down to 30 or 40 degrees below zero, that fat can actually help keep us warm in the winter. Furthermore, it can serve as a precursor to hormones such as testosterone, aldosterone, estrogen, cortisol, and much more. So let's look at how fats are classified because there's many different types of fats. So first off, there's these saturated fatty acids, and we can see in this top photo that a saturated fatty acid has no double bonds. And fats are classified by, first off, the length of this carbon chain. So these white dots are the carbon chain. So how many carbons there are will determine how this fat is classified. And also the location and number of the double bonds. So in this middle photo, we can see that there's one double bond. And also in this bottom photo, there's one double bond. However, the location of the hydrogen atoms around these double bonds are extremely important. As you can see in the middle photo, the hydrogen atoms are on opposite sides of the double bonds. So that means they're on trans side. Trans means opposite or different. Whereas this bottom, we can see that the hydrogen atoms are on the top of the double bond, which means they're on the same side, they're cis. And also that cis fatty acids kind of kinked. So these cis fatty acids are extremely common in nature and they often kink or bend, whereas these trans fatty acids are extremely uncommon in nature. And we will actually discuss more about trans fatty acids later in this presentation. So first, let's look into saturated fats. So pre-existing beliefs are that saturated fats will cause heart disease, saturated fats will cause obesity, and that we should really reduce the number of saturated fats in our diet. However, recent studies actually have looked into animal fat. So what really they looked into is people who consume unprocessed animal products like steak or chicken or even pork. And if these products are grilled or roasted, they've actually shown to not increase the incidence of coronary artery disease. What does increase the incidence of coronary artery disease is when you eat these same foods, but they're smoked, they're cured, or they're incredibly processed. So, to take an example, a hot dog could lead to a more incidence of coronary artery disease just because of how processed it is. Whereas a lean steak that you grill or roast might not necessarily lead to coronary artery disease. So, really, what this illustrates is that it's not just the saturated fat in these products which leads to increased incidence of heart disease. So, that's why these saturated fats are an extremely hot topic in the field of nutrition and dietetics because they used to be villainized, whereas now modern data is saying, okay, well, these might actually not be as bad as we once thought. And again, just some common examples of saturated fats are butter, ghee, dark chocolate, and animal fats. So next are monounsaturated fats. And monounsaturated fats, as we previously discussed, just have one double bond in their chain, in their carbon chain. And so monounsaturated fats actually have known cardioprotective properties. So by increasing the monosaturated fat in your diet, you'll actually notice a increase in the incredibly heart healthy HDL cholesterol and a decrease in the atherogenic LDL cholesterol. And just some sources of these monounsaturated fats are olive oil, avocado, macadamia oil, peanuts. And additionally, monounsaturated fats are thought to improve blood glucose control. So next we have polyunsaturated fats, and essentially they're fats that have multiple double bonds in their carbon chains. That's why they're called polyunsaturated because poly means many, so many double bonds. And they're further classified into omega 3s and omega 6s. So what that means is for omega 3, the first double bond is located at the third carbon, and omega 6s means that the first double bond is located at the sixth carbon. And so now we are going to further explore the omega 3s and the omega 6s. So, some common omega 3 fatty acids are alpha linolenic acid, or ALA, eicosapentaenoic acid, or EPA, and docosahexaenoic acid, or DHA. And I truthfully hope I pronounced those somewhat accurately. So, fatty seafoods such as salmon, mackerel, and sardines are excellent sources of omega 3s. And additionally, nuts, chia seeds, hemp seeds, and edamame are also good sources of omega 3s. Consumption of these omega 3s have been shown to actually to improve body composition. However, a majority of these studies have been animal studies where they've been given an incredibly high dose of omega 3s. And a majority of the human studies, people have still been getting omega 3s, but they have been usually following an exercise program uh, along with this omega 3 supplementation. So it still needs more research whether, I guess, to determine whether omega 3s can directly improve body composition or omega 3s require exercise to improve body composition. However, studies are very promising that omega 3s could be directly related to improved body composition, which would completely contradict the pre-existing belief that fat just has to make you fat. So now we'll move on to omega 6 polyunsaturated fats. And just some common examples of these fats are linoleic acid, arachidonic acid, gamma linoleic acid, and conjugated linoleic acid. And so, like omega 3s, these omega 6s can reduce LDL cholesterol and increase the heart healthy HDL cholesterol. Omega 6s have also been shown to reduce an individual's risk of developing heart disease. So they do have cardioprotective properties. An interesting thing, actually, in the American diet is the ratio of omega 6s consumed to omega 3s consumed. So the current ratio in the American diet is for every 10 grams of omega 6s, there's 1 gram of omega 3. So it's a 10-to-1 ratio of omega 6 fatty acids. So that's actually something that, as practitioners, it's important to educate our clients as to how to even out that ratio to make sure we're getting more omega 3s in our diet and maybe a little less omega 6. So lastly, we have trans fats. And these trans fats are extremely uncommon in nature. And as we remember, they're considered trans fats because the hydrogen atoms are on opposite sides of the double bond. And these are typically added to processed foods in the form of hydrogenated oils. And this is typically done to increase shelf life and stability. So one common example of this is peanut butter. So if you get the all natural peanut butter, you'll notice it has some oil at the top that you have to stir in before you really can use it. Whereas the more processed peanut butter, it just you can scoop it and it's good to go. And so what they do in the more processed peanut butter is they actually use some trans fats to increase stability, shelf life, and to kind of give it more of that creamy and smooth texture. And again, these trans fats really don't occur much in nature, and they're almost always added um, to enhance stability or shelf life. And just some common examples of foods that might have these trans fats are cakes, cookies, um, and just other highly processed foods. And these trans fats are proven to have some pretty detrimental health effects. Now, they've been shown to cause heart disease, colon cancer, diabetes, and they can also lead to obesity, along with many more detrimental effects. So, it actually, I believe that the food industry had to almost eliminate the use of trans fats in their products. So, let's conclude. Does fat make you fat? Well, as we learned, it's an incredibly broad statement because there's so many different types of fats. There's the saturated fats, which were once thought to be detrimental, but now are actually kind of getting some momentum for their health benefits and how they might not be as bad as we once thought. There are monounsaturated fats and polyunsaturated fat, which are incredibly healthy and can have cardioprotective properties and may even improve body composition. And then there's also the trans fats, which we just discussed and are incredibly detrimental to health. So, as a practitioner, it's important to always educate our clients how to, improve the quality of fat that they consume. So, to increase their amounts of unsaturated fats and ideally to eliminate trans fats. So, the thought that all fat must make you fat is incredibly incorrect. I mean, all foods, if eaten in excess, could make you fat, but it's not just the fat itself, which is going to lead to a direct increase in body fat. So that myth has officially been debunked. Fat will not make you fat unless it's eaten in excessive amounts, which again, everything should be eaten in moderation. And I have my reference page with all the sources that I use in our presentation. And that is all. So I hope you enjoyed and learned something new.